everybody. Welcome to week 3, believe it or not, of online classes. I hope you're doing really well. I hope you are finding things to get you back into a regular groove. Thank you so much for all your hard work. I know it's not easy. I know you have a lot of things to figure out in all your classes, but I want to let you know that you're doing a great job. Miss you guys like crazy. Yes, I would love to be in the classroom with you, but thankfully we can still connect. I can still teach. Hopefully you're still learning. Thank you for the encouraging messages that you are sharing with one another on discussion posts and the messages you're sending me as well, as we talk back and forth sometimes when there are questions. And just a couple of you have even let me know that you enjoyed the poem and that you got something out of it. So that makes me so happy. So what I want to do today is dive into Choose Something Like a Star. Since you analyzed it last week, The Road Less Traveled. And let me tell you, you guys absolutely killed it. I loved reading. And yes, I did read every single discussion post and reply. It was so great to see how everyone was able to glean something even slightly different about what those roads could be, what part of that was actually literal, what part was, of course, metaphorically speaking, as Robert Frost loves to use analogy. He loves to use symbolism, and he likes to use extended metaphors like this road less traveled. So great job, great analysis, great empathy and sharing back and forth with one another. We even had some folks who talked about how they have felt or are feeling like they are at a crossroads and are looking at the road less traveled. It could be unpopular opinion. It could be what other people do in society and you don't quite want to do that. Or it could be, as some people share, that even in your own family. So we're going to move into Choose Something Like a Star now by Robert Frost. This week you'll be jumping outside of the words into a musical aspect because, like I said, a lot of Robert Frost's poetry is converted into music, and that is the case with Choose Something Like a Star. The main point is to really try to grasp and understand poetic elements that Robert Frost uses to see why he's such a celebrated American author, poet, and also, secondly, to try to see some of the analysis, some of the deeper meaning behind symbolism and figurative language in the poem. So let's jump right in. First thing I want to talk about is the obvious symbol. So we have the star in Choose Something Like a Star. And one of your questions said, and certainly my question, to me, I think one of the biggest things that we're talking about here is, what is the star? What does it symbolize? Obviously, looking at this poem, this is more than looking at a celestial body, right? So the star is, of course, a symbol. It also, he uses it even in the title as a simile. So talking about this simile or talking about this symbol, what is it? There's a lot of different ideas as to what the star could symbolize or represent in the simile. And I know some of you wrote these things down. To start a poem with the way that he starts it off, "O star, the fairest one in sight." One of the things that you look at in literature is how things have begun before. And in literature, when you say, "Oh, you," most of the times it's "Oh, God." It's looking at a celestial being, at a deity. So a lot of people see the star as being symbolic of a godlike being, a greater power, a higher power. Those are some of the things that the star could symbolize. But as you read through the poem, he's talking to the star, he's dialoguing with the star. And so people have seen it as God, a deity. They've also even seen it as, crazy board, bear with me, as knowledge. So God, deity, or perhaps it's even knowledge that the author is trying to say when he looks up and he seems to be seeking something, right? In Choose Something Like a Star, the reason we look at the star as a godlike figure, deity, or knowledge itself, or, I didn't write that down, a higher power, is because the poet, the author, is seeking. He's seeking something from the star, right? He's seeking, he asks the star questions. He says, you know what, you cannot continue. I love it. It uses the word taciturn, which was one of your vocabulary words. You can't just be taciturn in your reserve. That's not allowed. In other words, you can't just stay up there and not say anything and not share your wealth of knowledge and greatness with us here on earth. You've got to tell me something. Tell me your mysteries. Tell me something I can use. Tell me something I can repeat. So the author or the poet in Frost's poem seems to be looking for answers from the star, looking for wisdom, looking for certainty, looking for something that he needs from the star. In O Star by Keats, in comparison, he continues to say to the star, bright star, you're so steadfast, you're perfect, you never change. You just look up there and you stay still, and we just sit here and watch you. There's not as much of a questioning for Keats, right? You stay there, you never move, and so you live forever as we swoon, or else you swoon to death. You just burn or you die, and that's it. And so there's not that imploring, inquisitive, seeking out from the star. It's more of an admiration. So in Keats' poem, there's more admiration, adulation. And then Frost even uses Keats' poem, that's allusion, remember? He uses Keats' poem to draw the compare and say, okay, no, you can't just be like in Keats' poem. You can't just shine up there. I need you to say something. Please say something. You have the symbolism, you have the simile. Let's talk about that personification. Stay tuned. And we're back. That was hilarious. Adventures in e-learning. Woo! Okay, let's see if we can keep it together. So seeking answers. He's seeking, and that's why we get the idea of a deity, a greater power, higher power, knowledge, something like that is what the star is symbolizing. And so we move on to the next thing, because in that seeking, you see that the star actually has personification, right? The personification in the poem is interesting because he asks the poem questions. So it stands to reason that he believes the star can reason, the star can think, the star can reply, and in fact the star does, because the star, I'm running out of space, speaks. I almost couldn't reach over there. The star also speaks. That looks really crazy. That's crazy handwriting. But anyway, personification is present and the star speaks. So it's really interesting that part of the personification is that not all this kind of, this works together to create dialogue. There's dialogue in this poem between a human being and a star. So you see that there's an imploring, and the star does answer, and I love it that the star answers, I burn. Does that satisfy the poet or the writer or the human being that's having the dialogue? No. He says, okay, well, don't just say I burn. Talk Fahrenheit, talk centigrade. Give me some details. Give me something that I can hold on to and repeat. Again, it's like he's asking for wisdom. He's asking for answers. He's looking for he or she is looking for a guide. And the star just says, I burn. What does that mean? Why does the star say I burn? So you could have had various interpretations for it. Could have been that Frost is trying to show, hey, we as human beings often are looking for answers in the wrong places, because at the end of the day, a star is just a burning piece of gas. Well, I'm not great with science, but there's something along those lines. And the star simply burns. So even the star, who in this poem is personified as human, is reasoning, is thinking, and saying, homie, I burn. That's about it. And so he continues to say, no, that's not enough. Say something. Say something, I'm giving up on you. That's a good song. But anyway, so the star says, I burn. And he's like, I know, use language I can comprehend. Come on, give me something. And what happens at the end of the poem? Does the poet get his wish? Well, let me read the ending of the poem for you. It says, you're steadfast. You're like Keats' poem. You're steadfast. It asks little of us here. It asks us a certain height. So when at times the mob is swayed to carry praise or blame too far, we may choose something like a star to stay our minds on and be stayed. So it's really interesting because the poet doesn't get more from the star than I burn. But it seems that he has learned something from the star, because the star is asking him to just relax and not be swayed by the mob, and to look up sometimes on something fixed, right? The star is something that is fixed. And then maybe you can be fixed and you can be okay, and you can stop blaming things on other, blaming things on other people or whatever, and you could be calm as I am calm. So it's kind of like the poet gets the answer and doesn't get the answer at the same time. Seems like the poet is looking for certainty, answers, guidance, knowledge, wisdom, again, a higher power, a meaning, who knows? But he doesn't seem to get the answer, and then at the same time does, by the star remaining stayed and asking us to do the same. This is a very popular poem because a lot of people see it as man's constant plight to seek more, to seek understanding greater and beyond their own earthly travails. And so that's why it's a popular poem. Some people find it to be religious, while others find it not to be religious at all. Because at the end of the day, we often look up to the stars and wonder. And sometimes, I don't know about you, maybe you're like that. You can sit and you can see the star, and they're never ever, they're constant. They're not wavering, they're not changing. And sometimes that's enough to keep us stayed, to keep us calm, to keep us okay. Wait, that's Choose Something Like a Star. You're gonna have some questions to go along with this. I hope you're enjoying it. And next week we'll talk about that music and how the music can also help to interpret the meaning and the idea behind Robert Frost's poetry. All right, see you soon.